All right, guys, kind of got these sway bar mounts tacked in place and every kind of thing kind of mocked up and straight and square. So I used my mounts actually to brace this top mount here that our floor links are going to mount to, and then welded it in place on the front side and the two insides to keep it from moving. So I'll show you what we got. So we've just got these kind of, just tacked them in pretty good, you know, both sides, square everything up. Once again, measure from here to the end of the frame. Everything's nice and square. After we tack those in, because you gotta watch when you tack these in, it'll try to draw this. You don't want to do that. And if you start drawing this, now we're not even with the end of the frame and stuff, and our floor lengths are going to be different on both sides, what have you. Don't want that. So be careful. Anytime you go to tack something or weld something, just remember it's going to draw. So do whatever you can to keep it from drawing. Sometimes it'll draw one way, and if you weld the other side, it'll draw it right back. But you gotta mess with that a little bit. You know, to me, it's, you know, try to keep it as secure as you can and keep checking it as you tack it. Maybe make one tack and check it, make another tack and check it. You don't want to get it all welded in and find out it drew on you. So there's what I did. I tacked these in place, used these for my support for this. And, you know, I think, I don't know, a couple videos or whatever ago, we saw where this was just tacked in. I didn't have it welded in, just tacked on the sides. So now we got a pretty good stitch on it, and it's not going to move anymore, but we use these to keep it from moving. Works out perfect. So now we've just welded across, you know, I did the ends first. We welded across the ends first, because the ends, it can't draw this way or this way. It will draw this way or this way easily. But this side to side, it's real hard for it to draw. Just the shape of this is squared off. It's hard for it to draw this way. So I welded those first. And of course, after I welded those, I went back and I remeasured again. Make sure your measurements. And then we went in and we ran a bead down through here. You know, it's not pretty good. Same thing on this side. Went down, we welded the outside of it. Went down, ran a nice bead through there. So that's welded, that's done. The inside, because these are in place, is a little harder to get to. I don't know if you can see it in there. But, so I just did a really good hot burn right here and then stopped. So it's going to take a little more concentration to get in that one. Same thing on that side. But that's going to be next. I'm gonna finish burning that in. But I want to get this out of the way, and you know. But I don't think anything is going to move now. Everything is very squared up. The rear end's squared up. Brackets are squared up. So kind of waiting on my floor length brackets for back here. My brother sent my stuff down and forgot to send my floor length brackets I ordered from him. It's the same as these, except this is 1/8 inch. The ones I got from him are 3/16, and the holes in these ones are 3/4. I don't want to use a 3/4 bolt. We're using a 5/8 bolt. So, you know, they're going to go on there. So as soon as those get here, you know, they should be here. I don't know. I think my wife's bringing them. So should be maybe an hour or so. We'll have those. We'll get back on this rear end. But so while I was waiting, we headed off to the weld shop to refill all of our bottles, because it's Friday and you don't want to run out of gas on the weekends. So we got everything filled up, ready to go. That should last me for a little bit. You know, expensive trip to the weld shop, but you know, that's the downfalls of building hot rods. You got to weld on them. So lots of stuff for torches, and you know, straight argon CO2, propane for the forklift. You got to have a forklift. Actually, I've been out of propane in my forklift for about a week or so that's why I've been using the skid steer to move everything around. And so that's what we did this morning while we were waiting on parts. You know, we never want any downtime. I don't know. I'm real bad about that. I want to keep moving. I can't stand to take breaks. I can't stand to take time off. I just want to build hot rods. So that's what we're doing. So probably, like I said, maybe an hour here, we'll have our rear brackets. We'll start playing with that four link. We'll get it all welded in place and get our angles correct on it. And then once we get that correct, like I said, these are just tacked in for now. So if we have to move something here, we can. They're not full burned in yet. So once we get our 4 links on here, know where our tabs want to be, know where our mounts are on the rear end, and get that all right and located where we want it, nice and square, nice and straight, the angles on the 4 link we want. Then we'll go back and we'll burn everything in. We'll put it up, we'll support it really well, we'll get it all burned in. Once we do that, then I think the next thing we're probably going to get on this thing is these front frame rails. I know I've showed them to you before, but my brother just got these cut out. So those are basically going, that's going to drop down through. You know, we got this. We're going to slice the top of that rail all the way down through. We're going to drop that clear through to the bottom, so we can weld top, we can weld bottom on this thing. It'll be super strong. So we're going to build these on a bench because these are double shear. So we're going to have, you know, we'll probably do tubing between them just to make sure, you know, they're nice and strong. And we'll get those all welded up, and we'll get those on the front of this thing, get it mocked up, get it squared up, same thing. Keep everything square, you know, we don't want anything off. So once the rear end's done, we're headed to the front. This thing's coming along nicely. I mean, we haven't been working on this thing very long, and boy, we're making progress. I know I'm making a mess in my shop, you know. I'm not great at keeping my shop clean, but I think after we get the rear end done, we'll have to take a little break and clean shop, because man, I've got a mess. But that's what happens when you don't want to stop working and you don't have time to stop and clean up. So, you know, sometimes you just got to take a day and do it. But I did get some signs up though. Look at this. You know, our classy rack custom sign. You know, some other cool signs. We have the Keep the Bitch Floored signs. Man, those things are cool. We met that guy at Good Guys this past year. What a cool dude, you know, really awesome concepts and stuff. He comes up with some cool designs and logos. It's pretty wild. We just call that the blue wall. So there it is, you know. Hey, I did get a calendar too, the Sky Oxygen, you know, Dawes Welding. So they give me a nice calendar. Actually a couple of them, but we hung this one first. I'll give you a sneak peek of next one, because I really dig this car. That thing is so cool. But yeah. So even though we didn't have the parts, we still got something to accomplish today. Still waiting for the 4-link brackets. Figure I might as well do something. I got my gas bottles on the welder and stuff. So I figured I'm gonna start getting these sway bar links made up. You know, they still got some metal scale on them. Not bad. I mean, but man, whatever this stuff is, it's hard. I mean, typically my little barrel sander will take the mill scale right off of this stuff, and whatever's on this sheet is some hard stuff. So kind of went to the belt sander a little bit, small belt sander. It was doing okay, but just taking way too long. You know, you hate to take that much mill scale off with a flapper wheel, because mill scale is so hard that you'll take one little spot of mill scale off, and right beside it you'll be down to metal, and you'll grind through the metal, you know, a 1/16 of an inch before you get the mill scale off beside it. So you got to try to find a better way to do it, and you can do it with vinegar. You know, it'll do it, but you know, once again, I don't like to wait. So, and that takes about overnight to do it real good. So so I ended up going, and we had to bust out the big yep, I'll think of it in a minute, the belt sander. So this is a big 3-phase belt sander. I don't use it very often because this thing is just, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of power this thing has, the noise it makes is pretty wild. But when I need to do heavy duty stuff, I use the big one, and it works well. So I'll show you. I've done 3 of them already. So there they are. There's the difference, you know. That one, no scale still on it. This one, you can see, it might be hard to tell with the camera, but big difference. You know. So those things come out nice and smooth. And then we send this stuff out to powder coat. It's already roughened up and stuff. It'll be nice for them too. So I'm gonna do this last one, and you can watch it. So I don't know if you can see the difference. I haven't touched this side. That's still male scaled. This side's, you know, nice and roughed up. Still got a little bit of dark in it from some mill scale, but I'm not that concerned with it, you know, just as long as we'll take a good weld, because we're gonna TIG weld these tubes that go through here. I'm gonna finish this off. So that's all those. Now we're going to take them over to the table and get some tubing. These holes here are going to be slugged with tubing, so you know, we're going to set these up. We're going to try to hold this camera and do it. So they'll be set up pretty much like this, and there'll be a tube right through the center of these welded in. That's what's going to give these things their strength, so they don't try to collapse side to side or try to push off side to side. So it should work well, but I'm going to get that set up right now, and then we'll try to get these. I'll show you how we square them up. Alright, let's show you what we got going on. You know, ready to do the links for this sway bar setup. I thought the camera was on. I did a little bit of work and thought it was on. It wasn't. But anyway, so all I did was I cut some, I had 1 5/8 tubing. You know, I cut some 1.5 inch pieces out, because these are going to go right here in these holes right there. You know, we're going to weld those in, obviously, but you got to keep these squared up. You know, this thing, if it gets out of square, then your bolt holes ain't going to line up. It's going to look funny. It's going to look stupid. So it's not easy to do, because all this stuff doesn't fit tight, so it all kind of just fits in there kind of loose, so it's not going to really hold it straight. So what I did was I needed a 1 inch gap through here, because these are both quarters. So I just took a 1 inch piece of square box, put here, one there, and one on this end, and then just clamp those down. So now it's got the gap, the distance is right, that's not going to get off. And then we put it on the table. You can see it laying flat on the table on both sides. I just kind of bumped it down on the table with, I put one clamp on it, kind of just a little snug, and then bumped these things down till they lay perfectly flat on the table, leveled across the top of it. They're good. You know, it's not a super critical piece, but you want it to look good, so you don't want it too far off. And like I said, if you get done and this thing's off, well, your rod's not going to go through here, because that's one solid rod's got to go through, and then your bolt's not going to fit through up here. Everything's going to be at an angle. So you want to make sure this is right. So then, kind of the hard part was getting these two ends. You know, one was pushed out a little farther than the other. Trying to get that right was a little tough. But what I did was I laid this thing on the table flat, and then put this up against it and ran it into that. And then once again with the one clamp on it, just a little snug, I bumped everything around until those things fit perfect from the table up and lined up. Now it's all squared up. It's ready to actually go over and tack these things in place. And then we'll do a test fit on it before we actually weld it up. But that's what we got going on. So we'll go get a couple of tacks on that and set it up on the car there a little bit, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so got this one set up. I'll show you what it looks like. Like I said, didn't finish weld it, just kind of got a good bead on it, you know, just to hold it in place, make sure this thing's not going to move. So now we can, if it's right, we'll take it over, we'll weld everything in place and be fine. Not going to weld it on the sway bar rod yet, but we can weld the center tubes up on it. But here's what we got. So see, it just slides right over this tube, and eventually we're going to weld this. That's how we're going to attach it. It'll be permanent. But there's all that, so that'll, you know, we got a bushing still has to go in here. I did get my dowel ring today, so got a bit of bushing for that. But this will go up. There'll be a link down off the rear end, like a swing link, because as this moves up and down, rear end's obviously going to move. Same with the forward link. So this will, you know, up. When the car raises, when this pulls this down, the car will go up. So pretty simple, but really cool. I haven't really seen anybody do it quite the way we're doing it here yet, but you know, it could be out there. It's probably been done already, but I haven't seen it. So, and then like I said, our 4-link tabs will go right here, and then haven't exactly decided where I want my bags to be yet, and I'm not going to until we get the 4 links mounted. Once I get the 4 links mounted, then I will determine where we're going to put the bags. You know, the bags might end up being like right here beside the 4 links, as long as they clear drive shaft stuff. That's all we have in the way is the drive shaft right there and the 4 links. So as long as we can keep the bags between that, that'll be fine. And then we'll have a bracket come up here to the bag, and that bag will shove on that bracket is what I'm thinking right now. That's, yeah, hey, nothing's set in stone until it's done. You know, when you're building hot rods, you know, I just kind of build as I go. You know, a lot of people have a full plan before they start, and yeah, that's not me. My brain doesn't work that way. I have to build as I go. I can't draw, so I can't put it on paper. And honestly, it's pointless because I changed my mind 100 times before I got done, even if I put it on paper. So no point in me doing that. Anyway, this is where we're at. Well, I'm going to get the other one built now. Just get it mocked up, get it on both sides, and then I think after that, I'm going to make my bushings. I'm going to get my dowel ring out, and we're going to make bushings so this thing will actually be located properly, and it'll actually work just like it's going to work in the car. And then I can determine my 4-link from there. So we'll be on to that. Since I had the camera off on the last one we set up, I'll give you a real quick look at how we're doing this one. So just like the last one, you know, put my 1-inch pieces in the middle, just to keep the spacing right. You know what I mean? Like I said, we're not super critical here. No point in building a whole jig to set this thing up because it's not critical. You know, our point from here to here just has to stay the same, and as long as it's not all wonky or anything, then we're not worried about it. You know, it's not precision stuff going on here, but you want to keep it fairly square so you look down there and the thing's not all zigzaggy. So anyway, what we done, put those in, and then like I was telling you to line this up. This is kind of a, you know, this one, as soon as I clamped it down, it actually got close, but I'm gonna put the bolt in this end so, you know, we get our bolt kind of squared up. But on this end, you know, if we're flat on a table, we bring this in here, you'll see there's a little gap right here. It's not much, it's probably not even worth worrying about, but we'll start doing some bumping around in this thing, and kind of hard to do with one hand, but let me set this down. Okay, that's pretty darn close there. So right up against, you know, our bolt's down in, our bolt falls through nice and smooth, bolt's nice and straight. You know, I'd say we're pretty good. So now that we're there, we're gonna clamp this a little tighter, and then we're gonna set it back up on table and make sure we're level on the bottom. Let's do that real quick. So now it's clamped real good and tight. Set it down here. Set all of our pieces down. We're pretty flat on the table. Give these a couple bumps. Bump those down. Make sure that thing's sitting right on the table, nice and square. So if it's squared up with the table, then I call that good enough. Put a couple more clamps on this thing just to keep it from moving. There's that. Now you drive your center tubes through just till they're both, you know, even on both sides. Real close. Some of them fit loose, some of them fit tight. I'm using seam tubing on this, so it's not very true, but not a big deal. Get those through to where you want them. Then we can take it over to the welder and weld the thing up. I'll get this one done and we'll stick it on there. Here we go. This is how it's done. Other one's finished up. Looks really cool. I like it. Too bad it's gonna be hidden. You ain't even gonna see it. Whatever. I'll be probably the only one that knows it's there. I guess if you look down the trunk and you really look around the rear end, you might see it. But for the most part, you're not gonna see a whole lot of it. The game plan was to actually make these look like old 6-shooter revolvers, but when we started doing the math on it, they weren't really going to fit, you know. Because I needed these to be really long. The longer they are, the less deflection you get up and down, the less it moves the rear end. So I needed to be as long as I could, and in order to put the stock from the gun, or the pistol grip from the gun, it would have been hanging clear down here, so couldn't do it. It would have been a cool concept, you know. It's kind of what we were thinking, but you know, maybe the next one we'll do it on it. But anyway, so that's that. You can see what it looks like down through. You know, same thing. It'll be up there. We'll have a short, you know, swivel length up here. It'll actually swivel here and here, and that's okay because we're only pulling down on this. You know, this thing is always going to be tried to be pulled up. So this link can swivel, which will let the rear end move wherever it wants and not bind up. So this will always pull down against the swivel, so it won't be an issue at all for binding. I think it's a good setup. I've never done it this way before, and we're testing it out, you know. see what happens, but it looks good. I don't see why it won't work. I'm pretty confident in it. The airbag location is going to be the hard part. To me, I just build what I like and then work everything else around it, and that's going to be tough because we're not going to have much room up here. By the time we get our 4-link brackets up through here, they're going to almost be sitting on this, but they got to be up enough to get the bolts out. But they'll be up here, so basically our bags are going to have to be about right there, and then that will clear. Technically that should clear the drive shaft and everything else. I'm not sure if we're putting them straight in like this or if I'm going to tilt them. I thought about putting an angle bracket and actually tilt those things down so the bag shoves down, and then like I said, we'll do a mounting system right off of this, probably with some cool tube work. We'll do some tube up or something like that, maybe a 3rd leg on the tube to make it nice and strong, and then that'll push this bar, and as this bar turns, that turns these up and down, lifts the car, lowers the car. Should be pretty wild. I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know. Then we'll decide what we want to do for bracing in here, whether we do corner braces or kind of do a V or type of an X brace, but we got to get the drive shaft through. The drive shaft from full drop to full up, it's got to clear that, it's got to clear that. So, those are our only two issues there. So I haven't done the measurements. I think it'll clear this, but we're going to be really close to that. If that is a problem, I already have a fix for it. But if that is an issue, if that comes in the way of the drive shaft, which like I said, I don't think it will, I'll find out here probably in a couple of days when we get the 4-link done. That's one reason I just tacked these in. So see how I offset these? I'd rather have it high, but I offset it that way. If we have an issue with this, we're going to knock these tacks loose, we're going to flip this thing right over, and then this will be pulling from down here. So there's a reason behind that, and that's it. So we're gonna try it though. I'd rather have it up. So the movement, there's quite a bit of movement here, and this is going to be close to the drive shaft all the way up. So we may end up having to even notch this. I wanted to keep this as low as we could. I can go up with it, but I'd rather not. The higher it is, the more leverage we got pulling on it. So if we have to notch this and lay this back in, that's fine. I don't have a problem doing that. But I'm going to put a 3rd member in it. Once we get the 4-link hooked up, I'll put a 3rd member in there, and then we'll get some drive shaft angles figured out. What's nice is the transmission will actually be, let me move my mess out of the way, I'll show you. I kind of got my transmission drawn out on the table. So right here, if you can see it in the red lines, is the transmission. There's the bell housing. Comes back, there's a pan, basically the pan on the side of the tranny, and here's the tail housing. So this tail shaft is actually, so the pan has to be basically on top of the frame. We'll run a cross member under there, but that pan will be above that frame on this thing because the frame's going to lay on the ground. We can't have our pan hitting the ground, so the pan cannot hang lower than the frame on this car. So basically the whole transmission, whole engine, everything will be above these frame rails so we don't lay it on the ground. That's the hard part with this. Now, the tail shaft, I believe, I have to get another measurement, but I believe the tail shaft is going to be 7 inches off this table. So if you look at 7 inches high and go about 7 inches, let's see, try to get a figure here. So if you figure pretty close to 7 inches off the table, and there's your drive shaft angles and stuff. So should be all right there. It's going to be really close to the top, which I wanted. But then as that suspension comes down, we're going to bring it down to really close to this. So I'm hoping we can get 7-8 inches of travel out of this thing. I usually run my cars down the road. We're 4 inches off the ground. That's all the higher I run my stuff. Now, if you want to pull into a parking lot and you got a dip or a hump or something, you want to be able to lift it up a little bit. So that's kind of what we got to keep in mind the whole time we're doing this. Is, the car is short. The last truck I built was really long, and it was, it was a dually. It had a Cummins in it, but it was a 46 Ford cab on it, and it laid on the ground. But it was long, and I ran it 4 inches off the ground. It wasn't much of a problem, but a couple areas we got, we got some some high spots in the, you know, in the roads or something, you know, going back into a fairgrounds like Rockabilly Ruckus, we ended up, you know, dragging a little bit there. But as soon as we did, we just hit the button on the air and raised it up a little more, and it was fine. So you like to have that little bit of extra, because, you know, 4 inches is pretty dang low to the ground just for driving down the road. You got to really be careful. You don't want to be running over any roadkill. But you know, so if we can get, I would like to get 7 or 8 out of it if I can, without moving any of this. Then I'm going to leave it where it's at. If I can't get that out of it, then like I said, I will knock these tacks right off of here. We're going to flip that thing. It's going to offset down. That's going to give us probably another 1.5 inches of clearance there. So that's what we'll do. You know, you always got to have a game plan. Either that or you start over and build it again. And those mounts took me a long time to build. I really don't want to do them again. So that's where we're at. I guess it's about time for me to get home and get some dinner. And tomorrow we'll start building some bushings and get this 4-link mocked up in the morning.